The Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, please call the roll.
Senators Aguilar, Baumgardner, Cook, Coram, Court, Crowder, Donovan, Finberg, Fields, Garcia, Gardner, Guzman, Hill, Holbert, John, Jones, Kagan, Kafalis, Kerr, Lambert, Lumberg, Marble, Martinez-Humenic, Merrifield, Moreno, Neville, Priola, Scott, Smallwood, Sonnenberg, Tate, Todd, Williams, Zenzinger. Mr. President.
Here. With 35 present, 0 absent, 0 excused, we have a quorum. Senator Kagan, would you kindly come and lead us in the pledge?
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, guests, citizens of Colorado, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the journal, Senator Priola.
Mr. President, I move the reading of the Journal of April 25th be dispensed with and the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
We've heard the motion. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the motion is adopted. Committee reports.
April 25th, 2018, Committee on Judiciary. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following, Senate Bill 240 be postponed indefinitely. April 25th, 2018, Committee on Judiciary. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following, House Bill 1314 be referred to Committee whole. If favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 25th, 2018, Committee on Judiciary. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following, House Bill 1391 be amended as follows. As so amended, be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with a favorable recommendation. April 25th, 2018, Committee on Judiciary. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following, House Bill 1269 be referred to Committee whole. The favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 25th, 2018, Committee on Health and Human Services. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following, House Bill 1286 be amended as follows. As amended, referred to Committee whole. The favorable recommendation. April 25th, 2018, Committee on Health and Human Services. After consideration of Mayor's the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1263 be amended as follows. As amended, referred to Committee whole. The favorable recommendation. April 25th, 2018, Committee on Health and Human Services. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following. House Bill 1108 be amended as follows. As amended, be referred to Committee on Appropriations with a favorable recommendation. April 25th, 2018, Committee on Health and Human Services. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following. House Bill 1313 be referred to Committee of Whole. The favorable recommendation. April 25th, 2018, Committee on Health and Human Services. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following. Senate Bill 272 be referred to Committee on Appropriations. April 25th, 2018, Committee on Education. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following, House Bill 1002 be referred favorably to Committee on Appropriations. April 25th, 2018, Committee on Education. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following, House Bill 1189 be amended as follows. As amended, referred to Committee on Appropriations with a favorable recommendation. April 25th, 2018, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following, House Bill 1136 be amended as follows. As amended, referred to Committee on Appropriations with a favorable recommendation. April 25th, 2018, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following, House Bill 1272 be postponed indefinitely. April 25th, 2018, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following, House Bill 1341 be postponed indefinitely. April 25th, 2018, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following, Senate Bill 256 be postponed indefinitely. April 25th, 2018, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following, Senate Concurrent Resolution 1 be postponed indefinitely. April 25th, 2018, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following, Senate Joint Memorial 5 be postponed indefinitely. April 25th, 2018. Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following, House Bill 1279 be postponed indefinitely. April 25th, 2018, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration of Mayor's Committee recommends following, House Bill 1301 be postponed indefinitely. April 26th, 2018, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of Mayor's Committee following, House Bill 1135 be referred to Committee whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 26th, 2018 Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of Mayor's Committee as following: Senate Bill 243, being as follows, as so amended before the committee hold a favorable recommendation. April 26, 2018 Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following: Senate Bill 269, be referred to committee to hold a favorable recommendation. Recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 26, 2018 Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following: Senate Bill 267, be referred to the committee to hold a favorable recommendation. Recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 26, 2018 Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following: Senate Bill 259 be amended as follows, and as so amended, be referred to committee to hold a favorable recommendation. Recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 26, 2018 Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following: Senate Bill 241 be amended as follows, as so amended, be referred to committee to hold a favorable recommendation. April 26, 2018 Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following: House Bill 1285 be referred to committee to hold a favorable recommendation. Recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 26, 2018 Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following: House Bill 1200 be referred to committee to hold a favorable recommendation. Recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 26, 2018 Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1176 be referred to committee to hold a favorable recommendation. Recommendation placed on the consent calendar.
Senate Services.
Correctly printed, Senate Bill 273, Senate General Memorial 6, correctly engrossed. Senate Bill 247, 248, 255, correctly re-engrossed. Senate Bill 219, 226, correctly revised. House Bill 1152, 1174, 1280, 1307, 1344, 1348, 1371, 1372, and 1374. House Joint Resolution 1012 and 1019, correctly revised. House Bill 1252, 1295, and 1355.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege by the good senator from Wheat Ridge, District 20.
The motion is to proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege by Senator John. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we'll proceed out of order. Senator John.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I know that everyone will want to help me welcome a really special group of people, young people that have come to the chamber to visit with us today and watch the process and see what it is we really do down here. This group is from Lookout Mountain Youth Services Center, and you may stand. I will just tell you that there are more than 5,600 children and youth in out-of-home placement. Today's foster youth from around the state are on the floor and in the gallery. We see some, yep, there's some up here in the gallery. They've come to Denver to learn about leadership, how they can become leaders, who are leaders, and what do they look like. So behave, leaders. Foster youth are often forgotten, but agencies like the Shiloh House are engaging them in programs like Beyond the Walls, this to enrich their life experience. Please take a moment this morning and introduce yourself, and please thank them for taking time out and coming to learn about leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator John. Did you actually ask for us to behave? Is that a motion, or? Senator John.
It was a gentle reminder that we
Okay.
all need to be nice to each other and behave.
All righty. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I ask for a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I just wanted to give a shout out to my mother, AJ Smith, who is here with us today on the floor over there in the corner in red. My mom, if she'll stand up. And just wanted to say she drove all the way over from Montrose today. So thanks. And she wants to come talk to you, Don, but she... So don't hide. Anyway, thank you for this moment of personal privilege, and thank you for letting me introduce my mom.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we begin third reading of bills consent calendar, there has been a request to remove House Bill 1307 from the consent calendar. So that will be removed and then placed at the end of the third reading of bills calendar to follow Senate Bill 255.
House Bill 1307 will be removed from the consent calendar and moved to the end of the third reading of bills calendar. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. And there has now been a request to remove House Bill 1174 from the third reading of bills consent calendar. So 1174 will be removed, placed at the end of the third reading of bills calendar to follow 1307.
1174 will be removed from the consent calendar and moved to the third reading of bills calendar to follow 1307. Third reading of bills, consent calendar. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the titles to all the bills on the third reading of bills, consent calendar?
House Bill 1348 by Representatives Singer and Landgraf, Senators Gardner and Gonzalez, concerning families involved in the child welfare system in connection therewith, prioritizing services and providing support for foster parents. House Bill 1344 by Representatives Weissman and Size and Senators Corn and Moreno, concerning relief from collateral consequences of criminal actions. House Bill 1280 by Representative Melton and Senator Corn, concerning regulatory procedures related to the appointment of a court appointee for a regulated marijuana business in connection therewith, making an appropriation. House Bill 1372 by Representatives Escar and Becker J. and Senator Gonzalez, concerning exemption of the Regional Center Depreciation Account in the Capital Construction Fund from the definition of cash fund for purposes of the requirements under the automatic cash fund funding mechanisms for payment of future costs attributable to certain of the state's capital assets. House Bill 1371 by Representatives Escar and Becker J. and Senators Gonzalez and Baumgartner, concerning capital construction budget items in connection therewith, codifying the 3-year period the capital construction budget items remain available, and clarifying the deadlines for the submission of capital construction budget request amendments, and budget request amendments that are related to requests for supplemental appropriation. House Bill 1374 by Representatives Hansen and Escar and Senators Gonzalez and Baumgartner, concerning controlled maintenance needs of real property acquired through a lease purchase agreement. Senate Bill 248 by Senator Martinez Humanic and Representatives Lawrence and Gray, concerning the treatment under statutory provisions governing tax increment financing for revenues received by Urban Renewal Authority following certain voter-approved revenue increases. Senate Bill 247 by Senator Gardner and Representative Landgraf, concerning the creation of a fund to pay for the continuation of certain benefits for dependents of certain local government and public safety employees who die in a work-related death. House Bill 1152 by Representative Lawrence and Senator Cook, concerning making certain records of the State Judicial Department related to sexual harassment investigations subject to the Colorado Open Records Act.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. We all appreciate the efforts of Mr. Carpenter, our reader. He did happen to read the title to House Bill 1152, which is not on the consent calendar.
Mr.
I think
Majority
we
Leader.
can forgive that. Thank you, Mr. President. I move the remaining bills listed on the third reading of bills consent calendar, including House Bill 1348, 1344, 1280, 1372, 1371, 1374, Senate Bill 248, Senate Bill 247.
Is there any discussion on any of the bills on the consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of all the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar. Are there any no votes on the bills? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1348 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Zenzinger, Senator Guzman, Senator Fields, Senator Moreno, Senator Garcia, Senator Court, Senator Kagan, Senator Jones, Senator Williams, Senator Todd, Senator Merrifield, Senator John, Senator Martinez Humanic, Senator Tate, with Senator Aguilar, Senator Donovan, Senator Kerr. With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1344 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Tate, Senator Kagan. With 35 ayes, Senator Priola on 1344. Co-sponsor. With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1280 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Priola, Senator Tate, Senator Neville. With Senator Marble, Senator John, Senator Scott. With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1372 is adopted. Co-sponsors: with 35 ayes, 0 noes, Senator Moreno, co-sponsor on 1372. With 35 ayes, there are noes, there are absent, 0 excused. House Bill 1371 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Guzman, Senator Tate. With 35 ayes, there are noes, there are absent, 0 excused. House Bill 1374 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Tate. With 35 ayes, there are noes, there are absent, 0 excused. Senate Bill 248 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Tate, Senator Kafalis. With 35 ayes, there are noes, there are absent, 0 excused. Senate Bill 247 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Crowder, Leader Garcia, Senator Aguilar, Senator Moreno, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Jones, Senator Cort, Senator Fields, Senator Kafalis, Senator Todd, Senator Merrifield, Senator Guzman, Senator Donovan, Senator Priola, Senator Tate, Senator Kerr, Senator Kagan. Please add the President. Senator Martinez-Humenic. Third reading of bills. Mr. Carpenter, now would you please read the title to House Bill 1152?
House Bill 1152 by Representative Lawrence and Senator Cook concerning may concern records of the State Judicial Department related to sexual harassment investigations subject to Colorado Open Records Act.
Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move 1152 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of House Bill 1152. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, there are noes, there are absent, 0 excused. House Bill 1152 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Lambert, Senator Kafalis, Senator Fields, Senator Moreno, Senator Neville, Senator Priola, Senator Smallwood, Senator Martinez-Humenic, Senator Gardner, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Kerr, Senator Marble, Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of Senate Bill 255?
Senate Bill 255 by Senator Tate and Representative Arden Hooten concerning the use of electronic formats in the issuance of certificates of title for vehicles.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 255 on third reading and final passage and kindly ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 255. Are there any no votes? 35 ayes, there are noes, there are absent, 0 excused. Senate Bill 255 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Zenzinger, Senator Williams, Senator Crowder, Senator Priola, Senator Neville, Senator Todd, Senator Kafalis, Senator Fields, Senator John, Senator Marble, Senator Scott, Senator Lambert, Senator Smallwood. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to House Bill 1307?
House Bill 1307 by Representatives Singer and Lee and Senators Gardner and Cook concerning restricting the availability to children of products that contain dextromethorphan.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1307 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President, and colleagues. Apologize for taking your time to take this off consent. I have concerns about this bill basically limiting the sale of cough syrup to now people over the age of 18. I don't know if this is an internet trend or a social media phenomenon, but I'm nervous about the state coming in to start regulating products that teens might choose to abuse. I think that opens us up to a potentially massive list of products, including cinnamon and Tide Pods and condoms now to be snorted that might all end up being banned if we're going to continue down this trend. So I would have loved to have heard this bill in Senate Health. Unfortunately, we didn't. So respectfully, I'm going to be a no vote today.
Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also agree with the previous colleague about 1307. We just cannot keep encroaching on banning things. We need to change people's behavior. That's the problem. We're going to ban ourselves out of everything before we know it. And this is just a step in the wrong direction. Dextromethorphan is something used widely by so many people, and there is a lot of good in it. Making it harder to get isn't going to be necessarily a good thing, but changing people's behavior is going to be the answer to it all.
Any further discussion? Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. I join my colleagues in encouraging a no vote as a no vote against nanny state encroachment.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, with respect to the senator from the gated, protected community of Douglas County and others of you, I, too, have concerns about regulation and excessive regulation. And what children under the age of 18 might purchase, but why don't we then allow them to purchase for their parents tobacco? I'm here for mom or dad. Why don't we let them purchase alcohol? I mean, where will we start and where will we end? And so I asked before I carried 1307, because I didn't want to be, by inference, be accused of being an excessive regulator. I asked, where's this bill coming from and why? And the bill comes from the manufacturers and the retailers who say this has become a serious problem in our communities. Teenagers purchasing dextromethorphan, common cough syrup, and drinking it by amounts that I can't even imagine, abusing it. And so all it requires is that you flash an ID. They asked me for an ID to purchase Sudafed the other day. We do that. And I showed them my ID. They seem to think I might be under the age of 18. I share my colleagues' concern about regulation, but we either have to decide when and where, or we just say, no, we're not going to regulate any of that, and we'll let people under the age of 18 purchase marijuana for their parents. Seriously. We do have an obligation, and we do have to decide. And perhaps this is too far, but it was requested, again, by the industry and by the retailers who themselves say, if we do not do something, we will have a greater problem, and we will then have more regulation than will be necessary, useful, or manageable. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I rise in support of the senator from the gated community in Douglas County. What I will say is that there's alcohol, tobacco, marijuana are used recreationally. Cough syrup is used by many people as an over-the-counter product, and the end of people who will be buying this is so much greater. I don't know that we can keep children from everything that will harm them, but just don't ban condoms.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I rise in support of House Bill 1307. As a father of four, I appreciate some folks outside of my home giving some checks and balances to wayward children. Keep in mind, we do similar to spray paint and acetaminophen. I too have been carded when buying spray paint to do maintenance on some property, and although it's not always pleasant to take a few extra seconds, I appreciate it when I drive through my neighborhood and don't see graffiti art all over the place. So there are reasonable steps we can take as policymakers to make our communities better.
Senator Corum.
Thank you, Mr. President. As someone who actually comes from a gated community, if we don't have the gate, the cows and the horses get out. We heard this bill in committee, and if I recall, I think we had something like 600 emergency room visits because of overdosing from this. This is a good bill. Vote yes.
Senator Court.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say I feel discriminated against because I never get carded.
Anyone else? I feel somewhat compelled to stick up for the first gated community in Colorado, Canyon City. Senator Tate. Are we done? The motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1307. Are there any no votes? Senator Hill, Senator Marble, Senator Neville, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Smallwood, Senator Scott, Senator Tate, Senator Lambert, Senator Lundberg, Majority Leader Holbert, Senator Aguilar, Senator John, Senator Williams, with 20 ayes, 15 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1307 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senator Crowder, Senator Corum, Senator Priola. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of the House Bill 1174?
House Bill 1174 by Representatives Arden Gray and Senator Priola concerning the continuation under the Sunset Law of the Board of Mortgage Loan Originators in connection therewith adopting the legislative recommendations of the Department of Regulatory Agencies as contained in the Department's Sunset Report.
Senator Priola.
Mr. President, I move House Bill 1174 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion? Motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1174. Are there any no votes? Senator Marble. With 30, Senator Lundberg. Senator Hill. 32 ayes, 3 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused. House Bill 1174 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senator Crowder. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, before we take up General Order second reading of bills, I would ask for your consideration, your support of a special orders calendar. I believe the Minority Leader has talked to members on this side. If you look on page 4, there are 3 bills listed for consent calendar tomorrow. There is objection to moving Senate Bill 268 over on special orders, but I understand there is support for moving House Bill 1381 and House Bill 1360 on special orders second reading. There is some motivation. We have a deadline coming up tomorrow. Bills that are in the governor's office by the time they close their door and lock it tomorrow are on the 10-day session calendar for veto. And after that, it becomes a 30-day calendar after session is out. So there's some motivation maybe to move these bills through more quickly, and I just wanted to explain that to you. Mr. President, I move the Senate take up a special orders calendar at the hour of 10:07 a.m. today to include House Bill 1381 and House Bill 1360, along with a local government committee report.
The motion is that the Senate take up those 2 bills on special orders at the hour of 10:07 a.m. The motion requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and The Senate will take up House Bills 1381 and 1360 on special orders at the hour of 10:07. Special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for the purposes of special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
The motion before the body is for the Senate to resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Smallwood will take the chair.
Thank you, sir. You're welcome. Committee will come to order. The court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title to all the bills on the special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar?
House Bill 1381 by Representatives Graham, Van Winkle, and Senators Neville and John concerning operations related to the sale of medical marijuana and the regulated medical marijuana market in connection therewith, moving from the 70% own source requirement to a one-year transition period of 50% own source requirement to an elimination of the own source requirement. House Bill 1360 by Representatives Winter and Lawrence and Senators Martinez and McIntyre concerning the expansion of the number of directors on the Board of Directors of the State Historical Society.
Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the two bills on the special order, second reading of bills, consent calendar, House Bill 1381 and House Bill 1360, along with the local government committee report.
Is there any discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the committee report to the bill on the special order, second reading bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. Is there any discussion on any of the bills on the consent calendar? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of all the bills on the special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills are adopted. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
Motion for the body is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We will rise and report.
Senate will come back to order. Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee's met, had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee holds legal reports out on consideration of the following tax bills being second reading. There makes following recommendation around House Bill 1381, House Bill 1360 as amended, passed second read order, revised, place the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Smallwood.
I move for the adoption of the report, Mr. President.
Motion before the body is the adoption of the report to the Committee of the Whole. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, or noes, or absent, 0 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. House Bill 1381, House Bill 1360 as amended, passed on second reading, order revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. General order, second reading of bills. Senator Smallwood.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for the purpose of general order, second reading of bills.
Motion before the body is for the Senate to resolve itself to the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the general order, second reading of bills calendar. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the general order, second reading of bills calendar. Senator Smallwood will take the chair.
Committee will come to order. Court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 235?
Senate Bill 235 by Senator Corman and Representative Arndt concerning the creation of the Colorado Industrial Hemp Research and Development Authority.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move Senate Bill 235 and L002.
And the committee.
L002 is a...
Senator Quorum, I think we need to move the committee report first. Senator Quorum.
Yes, I move we reject the committee report.
To the committee report, Senator Quorum.
We need to reject the committee report because this amendment is a strike below, and so it voids that report.
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any discussion on the Agriculture Committee, Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy Committee report? Seeing none, motion for the body is the adoption of the Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee report is adopted. There is an amendment on the desk. There's an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read the title to Amendment 2?
Amendment L002, Senate Bill 235.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. L002 is a strike below. It basically puts this, I worked with the Department of Agriculture. This puts it into a task force of 8 members from the industry to work on this and come back with recommendations for us. Department of Agriculture is in support of this and ask for an aye vote. I move L002, Senate 235 and L002.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Request a senatorial 5.
We'll be in a senatorial 5. Committee will come back to order. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to lay over Senate Bill 235 to follow Senate Concurrent Resolution 2.
Motion for the body is to lay over Senate Bill 235 to follow Senate Concurrent Resolution 2. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 235 will lay over. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Concurrent Resolution 2?
Senate Concurrent Resolution 2 by Senator Gardner and Representative Landgraf, submitting to the Register of Electors of the State of Colorado and Section 19 of Article 2 of the Constitution of the State of Colorado concerning denying the right to bail to a person who is charged with a serious criminal offense while in the United States illegally.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you. I move SCR 02 and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Concurrent Resolution 2? Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually had a couple of questions. I had the opportunity to go to Mexico in November, and it turned out that my taxi driver had grown up in Denver, and he was deported, and I asked him why, and it was because when he was a high school student, he had a fake ID, and it turns out a fake ID is a felony conviction. So my question is, would this mean that students who have fake IDs and are arrested could not post bail?
Senator Gardner.
Thank you. This concurrent resolution refers to the ballot because it requires a constitutional change. Language that essentially makes illegal immigrants charged with serious felonies that will be defined by statute, and crimes of driving under the influence that cause injury or death to not be eligible for bail. Doesn't deal with students with fake IDs and other things like that. This deals with serious felonies and DUIs causing injury or death.
Senator Aguilar.
So my concern is what constitutes a serious felony? Because obviously him having a fake ID was considered serious enough to immediately deport him. And likewise, I understand that just being here illegally is a felony. So does that mean every undocumented person who's picked up would not be eligible for bail?
Senator Gardner.
Thank you. Well, I don't want to get into the finer points of immigration law with the senator from Denver, but that's a federal issue, and so this is about state crimes. And once again, if you read the resolution, the legislature will be charged with determining what is a serious felony. The purpose of this resolution and why it is here is not in any way intended to be anti-immigrant or even, quite frankly, anti-illegal immigrant. But we have had serious crimes, deaths caused in fiery crashes out on I-70, where constitutionally our courts could not deny bail to that person that's here illegally. And when bailed out, they're not illogical people. They have ties to another community and citizenship in another place, and facing a few years in the Colorado Department of Corrections is not something that they want to see in their future. So rather than appearing in court after having posted $25,000 or more dollars, they go to their country of origin or someplace else. We are not, and the legislature is charged under this resolution with defining these felonies. I find it hard to believe that this General Assembly or any future General Assembly would define having a false ID as a serious felony that would not be a bailable offense. But murder, sexual assault, robbery, certainly so. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you know, when you apply for bail, the court, before deciding whether or not you are going to get bail, makes a determination as to whether A, you are a flight risk, and B, whether your potential release on bail would be dangerous to the community into which you prospectively may be released. These considerations are already made by courts, not only in the cases of people here illegally, but in the cases of people here legally as well. Citizens of Colorado, every person who applies for release on bail pending trial is assessed for flight risk and is assessed for their risk of public safety. So why are we making special provisions or proposing to the people of Colorado that special provision be made for people who have no documentation to show legal residence here in the state of Colorado? I submit to you that it is proposed that we do this because we are unduly afraid of people who are unlawful or undocumented immigrants. And none of the data suggests that undocumented immigrants are any more dangerous than citizens of the state of Colorado. Indeed, quite the opposite. If you look at all the facts and statistics without fear or favor, you find that undocumented immigrants in the state of Colorado commit fewer crimes, not more. They seek, as far as they can, to stay under the radar, not above it. They seek to live a law-abiding life for the most part, not above it. They are no more likely In fact, they are less likely to pose a public risk, public safety risk, than are citizens of Colorado. So this referral, measure of referral, I submit to you, proceeds upon a false promise that we need to be afraid, very afraid, of undocumented immigrants. And therefore, I suggest to you that you should vote no on Senate Concurrent Resolution 18002.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I urge you to vote no on SCR 18002. It's simple. You cannot deny due process to someone that's undocumented. This bill will require the state law enforcement that anyone who is undocumented does not get access to bail after being charged for a serious offense, which it says has to do with driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Now, the senator from El Paso County wants to give you the impression that all of the fatalities and those who've been caught drinking and driving are undocumented. That's just not true. That is just not true. And if you've been charged, doesn't mean that you've been found guilty. Why would we retain an undocumented person, withhold bail for them, when they've only been charged? And I know a little bit about our criminal justice system, and far too often people who have been charged, sometimes their cases are dismissed. Their cases are dismissed because of lack of evidence. Their cases may be dismissed because of there wasn't enough people to verify what took place. But to hold someone, to deny someone their liberty and keep them in jail because they've only been charged for a serious offense, which is being defined as drinking and driving, is not the American way. Nowhere else in our legal system do we deny bail to people because of their status. This is truly alarming. When you don't have all the facts that you're going to detain an undocumented person, denying them bail without due process. That's not how we do things in America. That's not how we do things in Colorado, and I urge a no vote on SJR 002.
Is there any further discussion? Senate Concurrent Resolution 2. Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Concurrent Resolution 2. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. Senate Concurrent Resolution 2 passes. The clerk, please read the title to Senate Bill 235.
Senate Bill 235 by Senator Corman, Representative Arnn, concerning the creation of Colorado Industrial Hemp Research and Development Authority.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, I move Senate Bill 235 L002.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 2?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Quorum.
this is a task force that's set up by industry leaders. It requires no funding. It has no authority. It brings their findings back by December 31st. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 2? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment 2. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendment 2 is adopted. Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 235? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 235. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 235 passes. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 266? Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move delay over Senate Bill 266 till Friday, April 27th.
Motion for the body is to lay over Senate Bill 266 until Friday, April 27th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 266 will lay over. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 229?
Senate Bill 229 by Senator Martinez, Humanic, and Representative Ransom McLaughlin concerning criminal history record checks for educator preparation program students seeking field experiences in schools.
Senator Martinez Humanic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, Senate Bill 229 is about concerning the criminal history record checks for educator preparation programs, students seeking to enter into field experiences, basically student teaching in our school districts. And as you all know, we're facing a teacher shortage. One barrier for student teachers entering the field is the background check process that we currently have. It's confusing. The current process is duplicative, and it can be an expensive process for students when they have to pay out of pocket. Currently, there is no statewide process for students in training to become teachers or special service providers like school counselors to receive fingerprint background checks in order to be placed in kindergarten through 12th grade schools. So each school district is different, and they have their own distinct different processes. Some school districts charge their pre-service professionals for their background checks, while other school districts may actually help pay those charges. Many school districts currently do not recognize background checks that have been done by other school districts. So this disjointed system results in student teachers and pre-service professionals actually avoiding doing the student teacher training or the training that's needed in certain districts because of the burdens of having to pay for multiple background checks. So the solution here is for a streamlined background check system process for Colorado's pre-service professionals and student teachers, which would only require one background check if they were going to do the student teaching in multiple districts.
Senator Martinez Humanic, we should move the committee reports.
Sorry.
Senator Martinez, the bill and the committee report. Senator Martinez Humanic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 229 and the Education Committee report and the Appropriations Committee report.
To the Education Committee report, Senator. Any further discussion on the any discussion on the Education Committee report? Seeing none, motion for the body is the adoption of the Education Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Education Committee report is adopted. To the Appropriations Committee report. Any discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, motion for the body is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Martinez Humanic.
All right, so what this bill does is it actually allows students to receive their fingerprint-based criminal history record check through the Colorado Department of Education, and then that department will provide these to any school in which the student seeks to train, if they want to go out and do student teaching or pre-professional service training. School districts on their own will no longer have to manage the fingerprint background check process themselves. And when students complete a fingerprint background check through CDE, all districts in which they work will be able to access the very same information they need to ensure safety in their schools with student teachers or the pre-service professionals. After an individual submits their fingerprints, they will stay on file. Any future activity that shows up for that individual will be flagged for the Department of Education, and it will be passed along to the appropriate school district. And it's important to note that if an individual leaves the state for more than a year and then returns, a new fingerprint background check would be required, which is currently the practice that our Colorado Department of Education goes through. This will help streamline our student teachers as well as our special service providers to get into our schools at a faster rate. And since we have a teacher shortage, this is something that is very much needed in order to expedite this process, and I would urge an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 229? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 229. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 229 passes. Clerk, please read the title of Senate Bill 254.
Senate Bill 254 by Senators Lambert and Moreno and Representatives Young and Rankin concerning reforms to child welfare services.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you. We move Senate Bill 254, and let's see, we have a committee report, and the Appropriations Committee report.
To the committee report, Senator.
Thank you. The Appropriations Committee report adds an appropriations clause.
Is there any discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Lambert.
We ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 254? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 254. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The aye has it, and Senate Bill 254 passes. Clerk, please read the title of Senate Bill 253.
Senate Bill 253 by Senator Lambert and Representative Young concerning the effective date to transition the Department of Revenue C-STARS account to the Department of Revenue's Drives Vehicle Services account.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 253, and I don't think there's appropriations report.
To the bill, Senator.
I just moved 253, and members, the Department of Motor Vehicles has long used the C-STARS system. Thankfully, they are transitioning to the Drive system, which is better, and this is to just administratively transfer the current account and statute from C-STARS to Drives. I'd ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 253? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 253. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 253 passes. Clerk, please read the title of Senate Bill 167.
Senate Bill 167 by Senator Scott Donovan and Representatives Winter and Sang concerning increased enforcement requirements related to the location of underground facilities.
Senator Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 167 with the accompanying committee reports, the Transportation Committee report, the Finance Committee reports, and the Appropriations Committee report.
To the Transportation Committee report, Assistant Majority Leader Scott.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The Transportation Committee met, obviously, and we had amendments on the bill at that particular point to clarify several different items that I probably just won't go into all the details because it's quite extensive, and if people have questions on the committee report, we can address those, but it had a lot to do with things like denting a pipe.
Is there any further discussion on the Transportation Committee report? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of the Transportation Committee report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Transportation Committee report is adopted. To the Finance Committee report, Assistant Majority Leader Scott.
Much on finance? I don't think we did.
Senator Donovan. Assistant Majority Leader Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Finance Committee, as I recall, I'm looking here, but we did not, let's see. We did make one change, it appears, nominating one person from the telecommunications broadband industry to represent telecommunications broadband companies. And we had some other small changes that we did in the Finance Committee. But we did come out unanimous.
Is there any further discussion on the Finance Committee report? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of the report from the Finance Committee. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Finance Committee report is adopted. To the Appropriations Committee report. Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ask for an aye vote on the Appropriations Committee report.
Is there any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill. Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I can't tell you how proud I am to bring Senate Bill 167 in front of you today. It has been an incredibly long process to get this bill to you. And last night I spent some time reflecting and doing some counting and looking through emails on the stakeholder process that went into this bill. And I stopped counting when I got to about 1,000 participants in the participation of giving feedback and formulation of this bill. It included a statewide tour. It's included about a year and a half of meetings, emails, and back and forth. And I just want to start there because of the deep gratitude I have not only for my Senate partner on this, but also to the incredible amount of input that citizens and stakeholders have invested into this bill. So what does this bill that carries the voice of so many people do? It revamps the 811 call before you dig location process. I hope you are all familiar with 811, but it is a process that you are supposed to do to ensure that you excavate or dig safely. And we have not re-evaluated this program for decades. And so what you see in front of you, and as we will amend it, brings the best practices from across the country, revisited to make sure it fits for Colorado and puts those practices in place for Colorado.
Assistant Majority Leader Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also, I think it might be helpful to bring a little history onto what's taking place and why the bill was actually brought forth in the first place. It's not like we woke up one morning, or even a stakeholder woke up one morning and said, gosh, let's revamp the 811 statutes. I never thought I would have to say this, but the federal government stepped in, Department of Transportation, Pipeline Safety Commission, known as PHMSA, and looked at all 50 states. And of all of those 50 states, they said, okay, who's in compliance and who's not with the DOT regulations for digging or looking for lines in the ground. My understanding is all 50 states were out of compliance. We are one of those states. So we had a choice to make. We either run a bill to get ourselves within compliance of what we call the PHMSA standards, or just kind of let it flounder away and let the Department of Transportation take over our 811 call before you dig penalty system, which was rather daunting when you start to read it, because the maximum penalty is $2 million. So we could not subject any of our constituents to the potential of a $2 million fine or a $200,000 per day fine. Now, believe it or not, that can happen if you hit just a water line. It can happen if you hit an electric line. We don't need the federal government telling us what to do, of course. We don't like that. But that's what the impetus was for the bill, was the PHMSA standards that pushed us into this position. So therefore, 811 language had to be changed after 35 years. And I think we've accomplished that, and we would appreciate your support.
Senator Baumgartner.
Sorry.
That's all right, just leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we heard this bill in committee, and I like the majority of the bill. I did have a question in committee. I still have that question today, is on the ag exemption, because agriculture is exempted when like cleaning ditches and so on and so forth. But if you call and they don't show up, and you go ahead and dig, and you hit something, are you still liable? That's the question.
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read the title to Amendment 18?
L018 and 167.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would move L018. What this bill does, what this amendment does, it strikes out the Tier 1. I got a call from several municipalities, rate payers, saying, we're already providing this service. Why do we have to pay into this again? So I think this is just a good common sense amendment to take that out. And I guess when the water starts exploding, we'll take another look at it.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 18? Assistant Majority Leader Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And part of what the requirements were, and one of the whole plans of 811 call before you dig, is simply a one-call system. If we went back to a Tier 2 system, you have to make one call, and then you're requiring an excavator or a farmer, for an example, to then have to worry about who else does he call. Now, if somebody doesn't get the message, or they don't answer their voicemail in time, and somebody does strike something, they are then 100% liable for that issue. And we just can't do that, so we're going to a one-tier system. And we're allowing the Tier 2s to come in over 24 months, I believe it is, 24 months to move their systems into that place. So I would
Senator
say
Donovan.
I would ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I too ask for a no vote on L018. This is one of the foundational issues that this bill is trying to solve.
Senator Crowder. Speaking on the amendment. Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also ask for a no vote on this amendment. What we're trying to do is, it seems to me, and I've been a utility contractor, so I understand this, but if a water company is actually furnishing this locate now, they will and they can continue to actually furnish that locate, but it'll be just under a one-call system. No longer will you have to call the water company. You'll call one number, and that one number will not only call the water company, but all the utilities and everything else. So if you start fragmenting this, it will not be the intent of not only the rule that we're trying to do, but the actual location, because that it's about coordinating all of the utilities under one umbrella. But again, I would ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Any further discussion on Amendment 18? Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question for the bill sponsors and also maybe for the amendment mover. He's moving. Tell me a little bit about the burden on these certain utilities being included in this one-call system. You had mentioned certainly that water doesn't explode, and water does prevent different safety concerns than natural gas or electricity. I also understand the convenience of having a one-call for people involved in construction. But tell me a little bit about why there's opposition from some utilities to be included in that, and what is the burden they'll be incurring by being forced in participation. And that was not a rhetorical question, hoping someone might answer that.
Assistant Majority Leader Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Water is incredibly destructive. We do know that, especially high-pressure water, and there are high-pressure water lines out there. Being a guy from the construction and the oil and gas industry, we deal with this stuff all the time, and I can do as much damage with a high-pressure water line being broken as I can with a whole lot of other things really, really quickly. One of the points about this is we cannot be locating utilities with a steel bucket. That's the whole issue here. When an excavator goes to work or a farmer goes to work, the worst thing possible is to locate something with a steel bucket or a disc or a plow. Those are the most dangerous things out there. It is a safety issue, and we're very concerned in the future. And the one call to the good senator's question, the point of the new regulations is that we truly end up with a one-call system. Hopefully that answers it.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the reason I asked for this amendment is most of these municipalities are already doing this. And so it puts a financial burden that they in turn pass on to the ratepayer. And I think it's a duplication of service that's not necessary. Ask for an aye vote.
Senator Martinez-Humenick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I too would ask for a no vote on this amendment. This would be like our 911 system if we had every 911 system that was different. And this is becoming more and more of a problem in our communities where either subcontractors or people are doing digging within their own yards and not calling first and then causing a problem for a whole block or a whole section of their subdivision. So I would ask for a no vote. We do need this tiered 1 system, and they get 24 months to bring everything into the system. So I would say vote no on this amendment.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize. Additional question. What is the incidence of failure associated with construction-related personnel not making the second call and/or having only made 1 call or 2 calls, but then made unintentional third call with a piece of, with a heavy machinery to find out what you didn't already find out, if you know what I mean.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I recall in information that I received from Aurora, these situations where they weren't notified, the damages were $7,000. The cost to Aurora to comply with this is the hundreds of thousands of dollars, so I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 18? Assistant Majority Leader Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and again, I request a no vote on this amendment.
Any further discussion on Amendment 18? Seeing none, motion for the body is the division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please have a seat. Senator Cook, we're good. Motion for the body is the adoption of Amendment 18 to Senate Bill 167. All those in favor, please stand. Amendment 18 fails.
We might as well run these other amendments and get that over with, right?
Hey, F.
Let's get 17. You wanna do that one?
Minority Leader Garcia.
Mr. Chairman, I raise a point of order.
Whoops, I'm sorry.
Will be in a senatorial 5. Colleagues, we're going to be voting on, via division on Amendment 18 to Senate Bill 167.
Your guy.
All those in favor of Amendment 18 for Senate Bill 167, please stand. All those in favor of Amendment 18 for Senate Bill 167, please stand. Please be seated. All those opposed to Amendment 18 for Senate Bill 167, please stand. Amendment 18 fails. Senator Donovan. There's an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read the title to Amendment 17?
Amendment L017, Senate Bill 167 by Senator Donovan.
Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment 17.
To the amendment, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Amendment 17 is the final, is the second to last stakeholder input that we would like reflected in this bill. I will briefly go over it. Amendment 17 will ensure that we have high standards if complaints are filed or fines, that if a fine is levied on someone, it meets the highest standards and cannot be used in a frivolous nature.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 7? Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I was reading and paused too long. The next section addresses that same issue to make sure that there's clear and convincing evidence before a violation can be levied or assigned. It also puts in the agriculture exemption language that has the broadest support from our stakeholders and constituents. And that also includes addressing issues with ditch maintenance and existing fence lines. I ask for an aye vote on Amendment 17.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 17? Seeing none, the motion for the Senator Sonnenberg. Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May we have a senatorial 5 to look over this one-page amendment?
We will be in a senatorial 5. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to lay over Senate Bill 167 to follow House Bill 1258.
Motion for the body is to lay over Senate Bill 167 to follow House Bill 1258 on the calendar. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 167 will lay over to follow House Bill 1258. Clerk, please read the title to House Bill 1258.
House Bill 1258 by Representative Singer, Melton, and Senators Neville and Finberg concerning authorization for an endorsement to an existing marijuana license to allow for a marijuana accessory consumption establishment for the purpose of consumer education in connection therewith, making an appropriation.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We move House Bill 1258 and the Finance and Appropriations Committee reports.
To the
Finance Committee report.
To the Finance Committee report, Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had some amendments there, basically technical, focusing on some of the language issues within the bill to make sure there was further clarification.
Is there any further discussion on the Finance Committee report? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of the Finance Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Finance Committee report is adopted. To the Appropriations Committee reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's see, the Appropriations Committee report made some definitions. This came from money that, of course, we set aside. Excuse me, I'm sorry. This is cash fund money, and so the Appropriations Committee report just basically identifies the source and the destination for some of those cash funds.
Is there any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The aye has it. The Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill. Senator Neville. There's an amendment on the desk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L023.
To the amendment, Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is
Will the clerk please read the title to Amendment 23?
Amendment L023, House Bill 1258.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a technical amendment that was requested just to make sure that we substitute language that says endorsement for a location that is within one, page 6, strike line 2, and put that endorsement in there to further clarify the bill.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 23? Seeing none, the motion from the body is the adoption of Amendment 23. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendment 23 is adopted. To the bill. Senator Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this is a bill that has been in the works and part of conversations for a while now. This has to do with the topic of consuming marijuana in what we're calling a tasting room. And there have been multiple bills on similar topics over the years. I think this is an approach that has a lot of stakeholder buy-in and engagement. It's frankly a conservative approach. It doesn't fix all of the problems. It doesn't end the conversation, but I think it makes a conservative step forward in making sure that we're still having this conversation in a way that advances the industry, allows people to partake, and does it in a way that ensures public safety and doesn't harm things like the Clean Indoor Air Act or anything related to that. So this is a good bill, and we ask for an aye vote.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And a quick question for the bill sponsors in terms of like how the bill enables a marijuana retailer to have a remote accessory consumption facility, or whatever the term is. Was there any consideration, instead of having the rigmarole of an additional facility somewhere else, just having the retailer itself provide the tasting capacity? Thank you.
Senator Tate.
Withdraw that question then.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had also a question for the drafters. According to the bill, they can actually smoke up to 1 gram. Is this, how many people is it limited to? Are we talking about one person at a time, or 20 people at a time, or how would this actually look? How would it work? My concern is the air quality for the neighboring businesses, and I would just like a definition of that if I could.
The retailer sets up a second location to do the tasting. Well, why not just let the retailer just do the tasting while they're bringing them a secondary location? That's what I really asked you the question. Okay. No, but I didn't ask that question.
Senator Neville.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The question was regarding, I think, regarding smoking of marijuana, and of course that would be in violation of the Clean Indoor Air Act, and the bill has regulated that to the point where smoking is not involved in this process. So,
Senator Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only other thing I would add is, I don't know if we mentioned this, but this is purely opt-in. This allows cities to provide these additional licenses. It is not something that would be required or mandatory for any communities around the state.
Further discussion on House Bill 1258. Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of House Bill 1258. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1258 passes. Could the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 167?
Senate Bill 167 by Senator Scott Donovan and Representative Winter and Singh concerning increased enforcement requirements related to the location of underground facilities.
Senator Donovan.
I move L17 and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Sonnenberg.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was hoping I wouldn't have to do this. I'm not sure exactly, I'm still sorting through the amendment, but it's fairly clear on lines 8 through 12 that the fining structure is back in the bill, but I can't figure out how it got there because it says the review committee shall not recommend remedial action or a fine against a homeowner, rancher, or farmer as defined. I'm still sorting through it, members. I guess I'm going to have to dig out my pictures and show you what I can be fined for. This dead tree, if I go to dig out that dead tree and remove that dead tree, potential fine. I go out in my wheat field and I dig up the roots to see exactly what's going on in that field, moisture, that's finable. This hydrant next to my shop, if I want to dig down and fix that hydrant, that's finable. Maybe I'll have to get a license and registration for these tools of my trade now. Post hole digger and a shovel. Things that we do on a regular basis. My stock tank where I push dirt up. You can see around the concrete. I have to call, that's now finable. Any excavation is finable. Filling in these sprinkler tracks, finable. Build this fence down the center of a circle of corn so I can graze two different sets of cattle or graze cattle on one side of the circle. That becomes finable. I thought we had that fixed. I thought we had agreement. I understand what the good senator from Grand Junction is trying to accomplish, but I thought we had agreement. And then in the amendment, when the review committee shall not recommend and shall be the ones to determine whether or not there is a fine or not a fine, that raises concern. And until I understand this better, I'm going to have to ask for a no vote. We have now become government run amok.
Any further discussion on Amendment 17? Assistant Majority Leader Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the good senator from Sterling, and I understand his emotions are high when it comes to agriculture, but the bill does spell out that existing operations are okay. You do not have to worry about those existing operations. Yes, if you were going to go out and build a brand new fence or you were going to plow a brand new field of 100 acres, that's completely different because you don't know what's out there and you need to know what's out there before you go out there and start digging. It's no different than me as an excavation contractor. If I go out and anything I do, we have to get a locate. It doesn't matter what it is. There is no exemption whatsoever. Just to put it in perspective, CDOT had an exemption for 35 years. 35 years. We took their exemption away. Counties had exemptions for 35 years. We worked with 811 to fix that. They now will be able to get an open ticket for 6 months to do road grading and the maintenance that they need to do. The 811 group, which is a nonprofit, by the way, just so you know, is set up in a way where they have a chair and they have board of directors, some of which are out behind the glass, and they work on different rules. We've had some irrigation folks come to us. We had the counties come to us. We sat down with that group, and they said, listen, it's not an issue because we can promulgate a rule. They're not trying to stop anything. Yes, it's unfortunate the federal government stepped in, but we didn't, what choice do we have? Another thing that the farming community needs to understand, that there is funding out there for them via PHMSA to help them understand these processes, and if they need help moving a pipeline, for an example, my understanding is that money is there to help them. Not that everybody wants to go grab that money, but it's out there. We don't want to lose that ability by not getting this done right. Nobody's trying to penalize anybody. We have worked for 24 months, 24 months, with ag people from the western border of this state to the eastern border of the state, and we came to the best consensus we can come to. Is it going to be perfect? Absolutely not. But nothing in this building ever is. Please vote yes on Amendment L17. Thank you.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for the bill's sponsor, who the amendment sponsor as well. This is a very real-time question that I have. I was looking at this last night right before things got too dark, and that is, on my property, we have a concrete irrigation ditch that comes to a gate, and we've got a mulberry tree that's growing up right beside it, and it has a sucker branch growth, and the trunk is about this big on that sucker branch that's crowding the concrete components to the gate at the end of that piece. Now, is that an existing operation for me to remove that portion of the tree, including its roots, because it's the roots that are causing the trouble? That's something I'm going to have to tackle as soon as we get out of session here. Do I have to call and then wait for them to plant their little things, which there is none, because it's on my property? I understand that perfectly. So is that a part of the existing operations, or is it not a part of the existing operations?
Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, I would just encourage you call 811 and ask them. But we have two things that address this: existing agricultural activity and also maintenance of an irrigation facility that is routinely maintained. But again, when we're talking about this, is just if you have to call or not. So when we're talking about exemptions, it's exemptions from the phone call. But we could go through 1,001 examples of is this specific thing covered or not. The intent behind 811 is just give them a call. They're there as a nonprofit to help work through those services. And every time I've called them, they've been extremely helpful in then even determining if we need to take next steps.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will deduce from the answer that I've given that the answer is it might not be defined as existing operations. What you need to do is call. What I heard was call first, and here's what a call amounts to. You call them, and then you wait a period of days for them to come and to verify what the situation is. Now, that might work for an occasional something, but for the ongoing operation, and this is the concern that I have, is without an absolute clear understanding that all of the things that are involved in agriculture in keeping the operation going have to be done now. Let me take this example out just a little bit further, because we're going to have water running through that concrete ditch in a few weeks, and I cannot wait if that root actually separates it enough so that water starts penetrating through and now it starts flooding the entire area. I can't call them and say, pretty please, can you tell me, can I fix my problem here or not? No, I'm going to go fix the problem. But I'd like to do it as a legal citizen, not as a criminal, which is what I'm picking up here. Now, we put an amendment in appropriations on this bill to actually accommodate for the real-life the realities of the ag community. And what we see in the amendment is before us is to take that away. There's no question in my mind thus far. The answer is no, you just have to be accountable to us and give us our several days before you do anything about it. It's not good enough. Let's not pass this amendment to the bill. I'm prepared to support the bill in its current form, but you take this one out and no, we're done on that one. Vote no on the amendment.
Senator Crowder.
Since I somewhat have some knowledge of how this works, if you have a tree by a concrete ditch, sure, dig it up. If you have a telephone line going under that ditch to your home, you might be liable for it. Normally what happens when you call in for locate, they set a perimeter of time, so maybe 1 or 2 days later, and they'll normally come out, if they understand what you want, they will come out and mark it. But they have been very, very good about showing up at a specified time within a 2-day period. If they say they'll be out there within 48 hours, they're normally always out there. A lot of times you can actually set a specific time to meet them. But as far as digging on your own place, nobody's stopping you from digging. But if you have a telephone line or some type of public utility line going through that property, you could be liable for it. And it's all about trying not to disrupt services for not only yourself but your neighbors. But we've lived with this for a long time and it's worked well. All we're doing now is we're just changing the verbiage on it. So I don't see a big problem with the entire deal.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I rise in support of this bill and all the hard work of the sponsors. I want to tell a little story about some projects I did last summer. Finally got around to replacing some dead trees and planting some new trees in my yard because 2016 was very busy for me for some reason. And in the past, I had called the locates, at my house 5-10 years earlier. So in my mind, I was like, well, I know basically where it's at. And I went and marked with flags where I wanted to plant some trees, thinking, wasn't going to be a problem. But I thought, you know what? I might as well just be overly cautious and still call the locates to see where the phone line and the gas line and the power line is to my house in the neighborhood. And lo and behold, one of the flags I had where I was going to plant a tree, and it wasn't going to be a big tree, I probably would have only dug a hole of 2 or 3 feet or had my son dig the hole, was right where the power line was. So I made the affirmative choice of not putting a tree in that spot, and who knows, it might have saved someone's life or at least interrupting service in the neighborhood. So this is important to the services that are provided and to the lives that are involved. I ask for an aye vote.
I renew my motion for aye vote on L017.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 17? Seeing none, the motion for division's been called. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated. All those in favor of Amendment 17 to Senate Bill 167, please stand.
Oh, no, we aren't.
All those please be seated. All those opposed to Amendment 17 on Senate Bill 167, please stand. Amendment 17 is adopted.
Told you.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 167? There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read the title to Amendment 6?
Amendment L006, number 167 by Senator
Assistant Majority Leader Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L006. This particular amendment is just really a cleanup amendment on a lot of the different discussions that we had about municipalities, home rule, because we had to cover each and every bit of that ground in this bill. It was very difficult to get completed, but I think we're there. I ask for your support on L006.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 6? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Amendment 6. All those in favor say aye. A division has been requested. Well, all those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated. Will all those in favor of Amendment 6 to Senate Bill 167, please stand. All those in favor of Amendment 6 to Senate Bill 167, please stand. All those opposed, please be seated. Please be seated. All those opposed to Amendment 6 of Senate Bill 167, please stand. Amendment 6 is adopted. Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ask for an aye vote on SB 167.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 167? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 167. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 167 passes. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1256?
House Bill 1256 by Representatives Duran and Harrod and Senator Gardner concerning continuation of the regulation of civil rights issues in connection with implementing a recommendation on the Department of Regulatory Agency's 2017 Sunset Review and report of the Colorado Civil Rights Division and the Colorado Civil Rights Commission and the continued division and commission in making an appropriation.
Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to lay over the balances general order second reading calendar until Friday, April 27th.
Motion for the body is to lay over the balance of the general order second reading of bills calendar until Friday, April 27th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The balance calendar will lay over. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
Motion for the body is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We will rise and report. All my gear.
Senate will come back to order. Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee's met, had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee whole budget reports out in consideration the following tax bills being second read. There makes following recommendation on Senate concurrent resolution 2, Senate Bill 235 is amended, Senate Bill 229 is amended, Senate Bill 254 is amended, Senate Bill 253, Senate Bill 167 is amended, passed second read order and gross place calendar for the reading and final passage. House Bill 1258 is amended, passed second read order and revised place calendar for the reading and final passage. Senate Bill 266, House Bill 1256, House Bill 1155, House Bill 1070, Senate Bill 261 later until 4/27/18, retaining their place on the calendar.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
Motion before the body is the adoption of the report to the committee of the whole. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, or noes, or absent, 0 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate concurrent resolution 2, Senate Bill 235 is amended, Senate Bill 229 is amended, Senate Bill 254 is amended, Senate Bill 253, Senate Bill 167 is amended. Passed on second reading, ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1258 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 266, House Bill 1256, House Bill 1155, House Bill 1070, Senate Bill 261, laid over until 4/27/18 and retaining their place on the calendar. Consideration of resolutions. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of the House Joint Resolution 1013?
House Joint Resolution 1013 by Representatives Kraft, Tharp, and Lean, Senators Gardner, Martinez, Jimenez, concerning recognition of the work of the Colorado Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Council in connection therewith, directing the Council to redraft Article 2 of the Colorado Children's Code.
Senator Martinez Jimenez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we bring forth House Joint Resolution 1013. This resolution, I move it as well.
To the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. The resolution recognizes the work of the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Council, which is housed in the Division of Criminal Justice in the Department of Public Safety, and it encourages them to maintain their work in making recommendations to redraft Title II of the Children's Code, which is ripe for updates.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. And we have several more paragraphs of why this is a great bill, but I'm just going to ask you to take our word for the fact that this is a great resolution, and we ask for an aye vote on HJR 1013.
Is there any further discussion? Motion before the body is the adoption of House Joint Resolution 1013. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, or noes, or absent, 0 excused, House Joint Resolution 1013 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. We request that the current roll call be added as co-sponsors of HJR 1013.
Without objection, roll call will be added as co-sponsors. House Joint Resolution 1013. Consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar. Mr. Carpenter, please read all the appointments on the consent calendar.
Executive Director of the Department of Revenue, effective July 31st, 2017, for term expiring at the pleasure of the Governor, Michael Scott Hardman of Denver, Colorado, in case by the resignation of Barbara J. Brohl of Lakewood, Colorado, appointed. Members of the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority Board of Directors for terms expiring July 1st, 2021, Amber L. Hills of Lakewood, Colorado, to serve as an individual experienced in mortgage banking transactions, appointed Paul Eric Washington of Boulder, Colorado, to serve as a public member, reappointed Stephen Hutter, Denver, Colorado, to serve as a public member, reappointed Jody M. Cole of Grand Junction, Colorado, to serve as a public member, reappointed Jennifer Glau Lopez of Durango, Colorado, to serve as a person experienced in real estate transactions, appointed.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move all of the appointments listed on the consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar, including the executive director of the Department of Revenue and members of the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority Board of Directors.
Is there any discussion? The motion before the body is the adoption, or is the appointment of all those listed on the governor's appointments consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, that motion is adopted. The following persons have been appointed to the Department of Revenue: the Executive Director of the Department of Revenue, Michael Scott Hartman, and to the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority Board of Directors, Amber Hills, Paul Eric Washington, Stephen Hutt, Jody M. Cole, Jennifer Glau Lopez. Announcements. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. After conferring with the minority leader, I'd like to notify all members of a special orders calendar that I would move tomorrow, not today, but tomorrow. These are mostly bills that have come out of appropriations this morning, and I'll just list those out. Those on consent would be House Bill 1135, Senate Bill 269, 267, 259, House Bill 1285, 1200, and 1176. Two bills that would not be on the consent calendar that were passed out of appropriations this morning, Senate Bill 243 and 241. So again, tomorrow I will have a special orders calendar on your desk for you, and we would move that. If any of you would like any of those consent bills off consent, please let me know. We can do that tomorrow. We just wanted to give you a heads up and be ready for what we might be working on tomorrow in the chamber.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking of appropriations, members of the Appropriations Committee, we will have to hold another meeting tomorrow morning we will do that at 8:30, and the bills will be determined later today. My apologies, but there are many in committee that we would like to push through, but if we can get as many cleared off the calendar as possible, that would be just peachy keen. So be at our regularly scheduled place, and 8:30 tomorrow morning, appropriations. Thank you.
Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. Everyone who has a bill up in State Affairs, I want to let you know that we're going to be limiting testimony to 2 minutes, not the 3 minutes. And depending on how many you have, if it's, because we are going to be pretty packed, and we don't want to go so long that so many people leave and feel they haven't been heard. If they would also just like to go and nominate one person on each side to come to the table and debate for maybe 7 minutes apiece, you know, that would be acceptable too. You have a choice, but we will not be hearing 3-minute testimonies any longer starting on Monday. We will limit it to a 2-minute or 2 opposing sides for 7 minutes. Thank you.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Finance will start as quickly as we can upon adjournment here today. Those of you that have bills in Senate Finance today, we have 7 bills. You see the time here on adjournment. That other room is being used. I suggest that all of you are ready to go, and we are going to move very quickly. If you have any questions, please get with the chair, and we can guide you along a little bit.
Reports to the Conference Committee.
First report on First Conference Committee on Senate Bill 179 of the President of the Senate and Speaker of the House of Representatives. Your First Conference Committee appointed on Senate Bill 179 concerning adjustments to total gross purchases for purposes of calculating excise tax on tobacco products has met and reports that it is agreed upon the following. 1, that the Senate acceded to the House amendments made to the bill, and as the amendments appear in the revised bill with the following changes. 2, that under the authority granted the committee to consider matters not at issue between the two houses, the following amendments be recommended. Respectfully submitted, Senate Committee Senators Hill, Chair, Cook and Williams, House Committee, Representatives Hooten, Chair, Pabon, and Van Winkle.
Any further announcements? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we will recess and send Finance and the Special Energy Committee off to committee. We will leave the desk open. We hope there will be committee reports, possibly bills coming over from the House. You will not need to be here. We will start tomorrow at 9 a.m. here on the floor. Mr. President, I move the Senate recess until 12:30 p.m. today.
Motion is for the Senate to recess until 12:30 p.m. today. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate will stand in recess.
Thank you.